Hello, everyone. IMS welcomes you all to Future You, Set Your Career Compass Right with Experts Insight. And I'm Kalyani Majumdar, your host for today's webinar. So in this episode, we will be focusing on careers in product management. So it is said that behind every great product, there's a skilled product manager. But what is product management? How do you become a product manager? What are the skill sets that you require to excel? All these questions and more will be answered by our bright young speaker today, Leela Krishna Annam. He is a product manager with Uber. He has completed his MBA from IIM Bangalore and did his graduation from BITS Pilani. Leela was a consultant with ZS Associates and part of Uber India's growth team before he transitioned into product management. Welcome to our episode, Leela.
Thank you so much, Kalyani. Hi, everyone. Very excited to be here and excited to take all your questions.
Great. So let's start with your career trajectory. Please take us through your entire career trajectory, right from BITS Pilani to what triggered you to pursue an MBA and getting into IIM Bangalore, and what made you decide to pursue or rather change your career path into product management.
So post BITS, I actually joined BHEL as an engineer. So I was part of their contracts team. My job there primarily was to make sure that we executed captive power plant projects for the Maruti Gurgaon and Manasar plants, the turbines which run them. I commissioned them. So my job was to make sure that the projects were delivered on time, and more importantly, customers paid the cash on time. So that was what I primarily used to work on. So the business side of things, the whole aspect of stakeholder management was something which I really enjoyed. But one thing I realized was it's a fairly individual contributor setting, and you didn't necessarily work in like a large team. So I transitioned. So I wanted to work in a setting like that, which is the reason I moved to ZS. ZS is more of a teamwork based, globally spread out teams. That's the experience I got there, and then I got into IIM Bangalore. Post IIM Bangalore, I really got interested by the tech space. So that was when, even while Uber was not the offer I had out of campus. I had like a fairly interesting offer from another company out of campus, but the moment I got out, I was in Bangalore for 4-5 months. I was like, okay, this is not where I should be working. I should probably move to one of the space. And Uber was at that time was expanding in India, so I joined them. And back then, the most exciting role at Uber was the whole growth functions, right? We used to, like, the city of Hyderabad used to do like 1 lakh trips a week. Now we do 10 lakhs. So a lot of interesting work was happening there. So that was the reason I joined the growth team of Uber. Now, as the business grew, right, one quick learning that I realized in tech is that the way you really drive impact is you could do a lot on the business front. You could do a lot on the process side, hire great people, have extremely streamlined operations. But the moment real impact is really driven through like great products. So if you have a product intervention, a metric which you're trying to move from say 20% to 25%, and you're spending all efforts on it, probably moves to 22, and then a new product feature is introduced, and then it goes to 28. And I was like, okay, so within the tech world, and honestly, like to solve a business problem, the best way to do that is from the tech side, and you cannot like create great impact unless you have engineering with you, and the best role to be in is like product management. So I started scouting with an Uber for what's an interesting role I can that I can get into, and eventually I spent time with one of the product teams at Uber. We hit it off, then I went through the interview loop and then joined them. So that's primarily how my career journey has been.
Okay. So can you talk a little bit more about how exactly, as in if you're talking about product management and how different it is from what you've been doing, and if someone else is interested in, say, only as in, okay, I just want to be a product manager. So what are the steps, what are the kind of roles and responsibilities of a product manager? Whether it is is it different from one company to the other? Can you just talk a little bit about what are the roles and responsibilities of a product manager, and what are the job duties?
Got it. So product management the reason the role itself is super challenging is it's extremely vague. the fundamental thing that a product manager needs is laser sharp focus on what the business goal is.
Yeah.
And it's up to you to figure out what's the best and the most cost efficient way to achieve it. Right. So any product manager across any company, this is going to be common, right? Like laser sharp focus on, hey, this is the metric or this is the goal you're supposed to achieve. But beyond that, every company, what a product manager does can vary very greatly. I work with the risk team, right? So because I've worked with the risk team, I work closely with a team of risk analysts who have a far greater grip on where is the fraud coming from, what are the fraud patterns that we're seeing, what kind of rules do we need to like enable to get that to happen, right? And I work with engineering who kind of mostly support the analysts in terms of, hey, like these are the features we need, or this is the things that we need to do. And then I kind of sit with them and help prioritize what is it that we need to solve first and then solve for that, right? Now, because this is a function of risk, wherein a risk analyst probably has like a much better understanding of what really needs to be done. My job is broadly to enable both engineering and risk also on the right problem. Now, there's another charter I handle, which is not directly related to risk, but it's more to do with like the tools which operations teams use. There is, I mean, somebody needs to translate what the business really needs into what engineering needs to build. And that's where my role is a lot more proactive, in the sense that I actually spend time shadowing users, trying to understand what the pain points are, which pain point to first solve is going to materially improve their life much more than the other. And then I work with engineering to say, hey, you know what, like this is a set of features we need to build, 1, 2, 3, 4. What are your thoughts? What is the engineering complexity associated with building it? And then we together we build like a roadmap, and then we go and build it. Right. So it varies greatly on your role and also in the company you work with. A lot of companies have multiple roles are kind of pushed together, and then you call the product manager. In some companies, a product manager is split into multiple. There's a technical program manager who's supporting you. There is a program manager business who's supporting you, and so on. It could vary, but the challenge of the role itself is in its ambiguity, and then is in its ambiguity. The single underlying factor is the laser sharp focus on business impact.
Right. Right. So there is one question that I would like to take, because this is also kind of a question that I wanted to ask you. So what is the difference between product manager and brand manager, and also marketing manager? What are the differences in all these three roles and responsibilities? Yeah.
Fair enough. That's a good one. So you could loosely align a product manager role into the same thing as a brand manager, right? Fundamentally, a brand manager in an FMCG, what are you responsible for? Doesn't care what you do, but you make sure you work with sales, you make with marketing, you work with creative, and just get the sales of your brand up, right? That's your fundamental like goal. So a product manager would be similar to that on the tech side of the world, wherein this is the metric you're responsible for. Now, I don't know if you're going to work with operations for that. I don't know if you're going to work with analysts for that or engineering for that, but make it happen and make it happen fast. So in a way, it is, you could say, if you move a brand manager into the tech space and then you looked at like what kind of role would probably align most closely with what a brand manager does, I think product manager would probably definitely sit there. A marketing manager is a little different. Marketing managers typically are focused on they are more growth roles focused. So they're not so much about top line. Brand managers typically a lot more about top line, like how do I increase the overall like sale figure. They're responsible for the overall sale of the brand. Marketing managers typically have a lot more narrower scope.
Okay. So now that you were talking about, again, you were talking about how a position as a responsibility of a product manager is different from in different organizations and can vary by company type. Where exactly product management fits within the management framework? So as in, who is that person? As in, like if you've studied finance, say you've pursued an MBA in finance, and then you get into that particular management framework. Where does product management fit within the management framework.
Got it. So typically in an org, product management either rolls up to two orgs. One is you roll up to a product org, which will be parallel to the engineering org.
Okay.
So engineers are your stakeholders. You don't report to their boss, so there's no reason for them to even respond to you, right?
Okay.
So one of the real interesting challenges of product management is you deliver through influencing. So no one reports to you, no one is answerable to you, yet you are responsible for what they do.
Right.
Right. So most organizations, the product org itself rolls up into a CPO or directly to like one of the founders or the board, the leadership. Sorry. In some organizations like Amazon, they roll up to a BU head, and under the BU head, they have both the engineering and product management rolling up to them.
Okay.
So it's one of these two. Either you roll up to engineering head or you roll up to a CPO, which is a completely parallel.
Okay.
That's how it is. But I'm not sure I understood the link between if you did an MBA in finance too. Like how does the
yeah, as in the thing is, for example, for product management, what do you pursue really when you're pursuing an MBA? What is it that you are? How do you? What is that particular field that you need to pursue to become a product manager? Is there any link at all, or you just you pursue an MBA and then you just decide to become a product manager?
Yeah. So I graduated from IIM Bangalore from 2013 to 15, right?
Correct.
Back then, product management wasn't really a big thing.
Right.
I mean, you go to any top business school in India.
Yeah.
For the longest time, it was just finance and consulting.
Correct. Yeah.
But nowadays, if you go to schools, suddenly you have all these people who are talking about product management. So it's like product management is equivalent to consulting, at least if not finance, right? Like,
yeah.
So there's a lot of like buzz around product management right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
The thing with academia is a little slow in terms of trying to catch up with market trends.
Correct, yeah.
So you wouldn't necessarily find the right relevant courses to it. That said, there are almost all the IIMs, I'm not sure of the other schools, they have a technology stream with some professors who are largely interested in that space, either from operations side or from the strategy side. And they offer a lot of courses. So I did a lot of technology strategy courses, which definitely helped me in my current role. Right. You could pick and choose courses which work for you. Few courses which definitely help in you having, because data analysis is a big part of product management, and you need to either run the analysis yourself or you need to work closely with analysts and make sense of what they're talking. So modeling courses, statistical modeling courses, data analytics courses would be definitely of help.
So there is a question about exactly about what you were talking about. So is MBA the only option to get into a good product management role?
Fair enough.
Yeah. That is what
yeah, I know, right? Like IMS is funding this talk, but let's do this. So when you actually you just talk people on LinkedIn, right? You're going to find a very eclectic mix of product managers. Right. You will find people like me who were on the business side and then who transitioned to product management post an MBA. Yeah. You'll find a good chunk of founders of failed or sold startups who are now product managers in companies. Okay. Actually, that's like a fairly large set.
So then, are you saying that product managers, as in entrepreneurship and product management has some kind of a link, as in maybe a product manager can in the future become a...
Exactly, like product. See, fundamentally, your job is to identify is there a gap or is there a pain point, and how can I solve it using engineering and analysis, right? And it's exactly what an entrepreneur does. He looks at the market, says, hey, here is a very important user pain point. The market size is large enough for me to chase. The risk associated with it lesser than the overall opportunity. Let me go ahead and solve that problem. And that's exactly what a product manager does for a company. An entrepreneur does it for himself or herself. So there's a lot of link. In fact, a fair chunk of product managers are actually ex-entrepreneurs, and also a lot of product managers eventually find their calling and then go into entrepreneurship. You'll also find a chunk of engineers and technical architects who've been in the tech line for a while. and then they understand the business side of things enough, and they want to get learn more about it, so they transition to product management.
So is it it's a cross-functional practice you're saying?
Yeah, it's a super cross-functional practice.
Okay.
So you will find mostly these three chunks: either folks who've come the MBA path, or folks who've and down the MBA path also, people who directly get into product management post an MBA and just stick to that line.
Correct.
And there'll be people like me who flirted with other areas and then transition to it. Or you'll find this entrepreneur batch who transition to product managers, and then the third bunch is mostly engineers who transition to product management. No MBA, nothing. They usually transition to product management.
Okay. So can you tell us about the career progression from from entry level, mid level, and then to senior positions in product management?
Got it. So typically, now because it's a fairly loosely defined role, it's a little tricky for people to really define how does path look like, right? In fact, like, I don't know, most tech companies, if you come to, every HR or every HR BP says the same thing. Hey, careers are no longer like a ladder. It's more like rock climbing. So sometimes you have to move sideways, sometimes you have to go down, and then you can go up. So it's more about like figuring an interesting problem within the company you want to solve and solve for it. That said, people still want to grow, like in terms of designation, compensation, and so on, right? So within the product management area, career path typically looks like you start off owning like a piece of a charter. So within the overall risk framework, say at Uber, I own the money movement risk. So what does money movement risk mean? After a trip or an order ends, any fraud which kind of arises post that is what I own. But any order which is before that is something which my peers own, like my colleagues own, right? Like now, as you grow, you would essentially be responsible for, hey, not just this area, but like overall risk is your responsibility. And then either you're solving for it yourself, or you have a team under you and they're working on the problem, right? And eventually you would aim for like increasing the scope of the problems that you're solving, or the depth of the problem that you're solving. And that is how your path kind of looks like. These roles typically level off at like director product or senior director product. Usually they don't, very unusual for somebody from product management to go ahead and actually lead the business. Business mostly comes from either finance or sales, except in few companies, say like Google, right? But Sundar Pichai joined Google when Google was 1,000 employee company.
Right.
So yeah, product management, typically you end up at like director, senior director, product management, and that's broadly it.
Okay. There's a question. It is said that no course is good enough to learn product management. Then what should we do to fast track our career? MS in product management, MBA in India, we have to pick and choose courses to be able to gather skills for product management. It seems outside of India, it has gained much more traction. Any one course in the market that you can recommend?
Fair point, yeah. So if you do a master's, I'm not sure, like if you do a master's in engineering, right? I'm not sure like product management is the right line to come, because you have specialized hard skills, and the market's like super hot for engineers, right? Like a great engineer can any day replace a good product manager. Like I'm telling you fundamentally, right? Like so a great engineer with good business sense. Now, if it might be a very great engineer, is technically very sound, but probably doesn't get business too much, and is more interested in the technical complexity of it. Maybe not, but usually product management, a great engineer can always become a product manager. So if you're doing a master's, like engineering would probably be the line of role to go in. What has happened in the West is universities have seen this trend and they've introduced this market courses for product management.
Right.
However, I don't know personally if the market really values those courses so much, because typically I have not seen, at least within Uber, a lot of people come through that stream. What I've seen though is people doing a master's and directly choosing to get into product management, which is a little baffling for me. If you've done a master's in science and computer science, I would rather be an engineer but a product manager, but some people have chosen to do that.
Okay.
Uh, does that answer your question?
Yes. Yes.
There are a lot of like online courses right now, which actually the Indian market appreciates. So there are courses from Coursera. Essentially, all these online courses, what they do is, one, you definitely learn. Two, you also signal to your potential employer that, hey, I'm genuinely interested. You know what? I actually spent money. I went through the effort of going through the whole course, and then I have the certification. So what you're doing is you're signaling to your potential employer that you're genuinely interested in product management, and that will help you stand out from the rest of the crowd. There's one question on if UI and UX designers also can
Yes.
product
Yeah.
managers. So a fair chunk of, so there are multiple archetypes of PM. So let me talk about that first. I think that will answer questions.
Okay.
Number one is your typical business PM, which would be somebody like me, right? Folks who start off on the business side of things, and subsequently they understand business well enough, and they feel there's a lot of value in terms of engaging with engineers and making sure they're able to solve the business problem better.
Right. Okay.
Right. So that would be a typical archetype. Most of these entrepreneurs I spoke about, fit in this side. They mostly work as business PMs.
Right.
Then you have these heavy data PMs, right? They work with ML engineers, they work with data scientists, they work with analysts in building the right data platforms, data heavy, right? Typical ML engineers kind of transition into these roles.
Okay.
Then you have this platform PMs. These are hardcore PM. They define like how should a platform scale, how should the stack look like, what should be the design of the platform so that it aligns the business as well. These are usually engineers who transition into PM. Typically, they are on the platforms of PMs.
Okay.
A lot of these Google PMs and Google PMs tend to be platform PMs. They have a lot of focus on platforms.
Okay.
Right. And then you have these growth PMs. Growth PMs are growth and user experience PMs who understand, like, who think of what hacks can we do to grow and so on, and like how should the user experience look like and so on. So you have a fair number of UI UX people and folks from the marketing side who transition to product management in this particular archetype.
Okay.
So that's why I said you would have the same title, product management, and you could come from very different sets of backgrounds, but typically you are hired for a certain archetype of PM, and that's where you fit in. You would also be able to deliver your best, considering you'll be able to leverage your past experience.
Again, a lot of people are asking about the same question about, what do you do? What is that course that you should actually pursue to become a product management professional? Anyway, so we can go to now. You could probably start talking about a little bit about the skill sets that I mean, how do you even know that you fit the role of a product of a product management manager?
How do I know, right? So usually across companies, they look for four large typical buckets wherein you're fitting, right? One is vision. Do you have the vision in terms of seeing that, hey, I know this is a company's problem, and the way to, and we are at X and we need to get to Y, and this is how we'll get to Y. It could be loosely defined when you have the point of view, but at least you need to have that vision and the point of view that this is how I'm going to go ahead and solve it, right? So vision is something a lot of companies look for. They test it in multiple ways, how we've solved problems in the past, why did you do that, how did you do that, and so on, right? The second part, which is very important, is execution, right? Like in terms of, do you have bias to action? Can you quickly get on your feet? Can you get your hands dirty because nobody else is picking it up? Can you say, okay, I'll let me pick it up and get it out of the way, right? Like, do you have this ability to execute and ship things fast? The third aspect is the whole leadership part, correct? Because nobody really rolls up to you or reports to you or is even liable to answer to you, right? Like, and yet, like, you are a PM who can't code, and then you're supposed to build a tech solution and ship it. How do you do that? So you need to show value to the engineering and analysts that, hey, this is a value I bring to the table. This is my understanding of the business that I bring to the table. You need to rally them behind your vision and you need to get them to execute that vision. So this ability to influence, execute through influencing is very, very important, and that stakeholder management capabilities are extremely key for this role.
Right.
So leadership is the third bucket which you need to look at.
Mhm.
And the fourth one is impact.
Okay.
Fundamentally, like any product manager, no matter what you've shaped, what you've done, they will ask how, or your leadership is going to ask how much has the metric you're responsible for moved.
Okay.
If you moved, you've delivered. If you're not moved, you're not delivered. An extremely objective way of qualifying a product manager as successful or not is how do the metrics look like. So,
okay, so to keep it simple for our attendees who are basically preparing for CAT in 2020 and 2021. So to keep it simple, if we are talking about skills, since product management is a mix of marketing, organizational, technical, and people skills, how important is it for a candidate to have real good ground experience in order to land a job in product management? And also, since you were talking about having some amount of knowledge in finance or math, is it really, really that important to have those skills? Can you just answer these two?
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So ground knowledge for sure, right? Like fundamentally, if you want somebody to respect you or somebody to want to work with you, you should bring something of value to the table.
Okay.
So you essentially have demonstrated that, hey, I have worked on the ground. I know the voice of the user. I know the voice of the customer. And I can speak their language in a way which you understand so that we do the right thing. So it's super crucial for a product manager to be able to come from the ground up. Some of the best PMs come from ground up, right?
Okay.
The second one, which you were talking about, what was it again?
Basically, is it true that you need to be of math and financial acumen, high priority skills for product managers?
Yeah. So data analysis helps. In fact, for the matter, even some understanding of, at least understanding technical architecture helps.
Right.
You will pick that up if you have a great working relationship with the engineering manager. You work with them, you work with engineers, and kind of you can pick that up. It's not that you have to come out of school with all of those information. Okay. But these are all skills which will help for sure. But just these alone won't make you a great PM.
Okay. Yeah. So can you summarize, like, maybe 3 points, 3 soft skills, 3 hard skills that you need to have, or you can polish it, improve, so that you can excel as a product manager?
Sure. Yeah. So let me talk about the soft skills first. One is like you need to have excellent communication skills, right? You're going to communicate with folks, top, bottom, peers, everybody. Right. Because you need to rally and evangelize your product and rally people behind your vision and get them to deliver. So that's very important, communication skills. The second part is you need to have extraordinary people skills, right? You need to be very good at just getting people to like you and doing what you want them to do without them knowing it. So, or even if they know it, it's okay, but they're okay doing it because it's you, right? So you need to have like great people skills. You can't be a prick and be a great PM. It's impossible. Of course. The third one is, so there's communication skills and people skills. And the third one is like super focus on business impact. So regardless of all the noise in the organization, what's fancy, what's not, you need to be focused on the metric which you need to move. Right. And you need to have this ability to say no many times. It's a little hard in organizations, especially if there's somebody like higher up the hierarchy asking you questions, and you should. So these are the things which really stand out. The third one, on the technical side, for sure, some amount of engineering background does help, but it's not a deal breaker. Okay. Data analysis skills will help. If you are handicapped from a data analysis standpoint, it will hurt you. Okay. Not as much engineering wouldn't hurt you so much, but on the data side, you need to have a point of view of your own besides just what the analyst is saying. So I think hard skills are mostly these. From the engineering side and data side, you just need to be very clear. And third one, maybe a hard skill, if you can call it that, is business understanding, right? Like the area you operate in, you need to understand the user pain points and those aspects of it. So these are three hard skills.
Hmm.
Some people also call the third one as user experience, UI or UX. So designers would probably understand and appreciate that a lot more. So that is another hard skill which kind of aligns with what designers do.
There's a question. Is a commerce graduate with 3 years experience in retail banking, is that person suitable for a PM role?
Yeah, so you can. So there will be organizations mostly. So for example, you are in retail banking, right? And there are companies which are building banking products for retail banks or even like other fintech products, right? And your retail banking experience will come in handy because you understand like the user and the ground up operations, and you can transition into those roles. So no company will hold your past experience against you because you come from a different place. If they see that it's something which will help them in meeting their own business goals, they will be open to hire you as a PM. You not coming from a tech background does not hurt you. Some companies hold it against you, but most companies, especially for business PM roles, they do not. They are open to hiring folks from across the board.
How do you build a profile for product management? What are the things? I mean, what are the things that they can start preparing for right now?
Got it. So the profile, like I said, one thing which is very important is you signaling that you are interested in this space, that you want to move into these kind of roles, right? Like some certification courses will help. Not only will you learn, but you're signaling to the market and the employer that, hey, I'm interested. I'm genuinely interested in this. Few things that you could do, which a lot of PMs also do, is you keep scouting and like looking at products and trying to find opportunities there, and how would you do something different about it if you were the product manager for it, right? And they publish blogs on it, they give talks on it, and so on. So that way, some folks go down the route of like creating a public profile in terms of showcasing their product promise.
Okay.
So that is one route you can take. The most easiest thing that you could do is bite the humble pie. And essentially, a lot of companies are willing to get folks as entry-level PMs. They're open to it, regardless of what background you come from. So it might be a level down for you, but you go there and then you can quickly grow up as you prove like value, right? So that's one route one can always explore. Especially most of the startups are open to hiring APM associate product managers who come from across a variety of backgrounds, and those are great learning grounds. So you could actually move to a PM role first, get a flavor of it, and then you can think about now how do I grow as a PM, right? Like, so that's one approach a lot of people take too.
Tell us, what is a typical day for a product manager? What is a typical day? Any day.
Got it.
Right from morning till the tasks.
Got it. Cool.
Yeah.
So usually it's, as with any one of us, it starts with the emails. So you go about, like, you go through emails and you try and identify if there's anything pressing or urgent that you need to immediately respond to. Fundamentally, on your day-to-day execution, as a PM, there is one thing you're solving for. You're looking at how are my metrics looking? Are they moving in the direction which they should be moving at? If something is off, why is it off? Try and identify. So that's why the second thing that I look at is, after post emails, how are my business metrics looking? Right? Like, are they making sense or not? The third one that I'm essentially need to deliver every 2 weeks, because that's how an engineering sprint lasts, is essentially, what are the set of tasks that engineering has to work next on? Right? Or the analysts have to work next on. And I need to get that ready. So if that would mean I might have to shadow users, I have to connect with the team which work on those tools or products and understand, like, hey, this is what you're building next. Are you aligned with it, or do you see it differently? Why should I build this, and so on. So getting that backlog ready for the sprint is the other thing that I work on. This is in an agile setup. So yeah, broadly these three things. So making the third happen is the end goal, like the medium goal. The end goal is to make sure the metrics look fine, and the whole aspect of aligning everybody, shadowing users, understanding users is a third party.
So can you tell us one particular challenge or challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome that particular challenge or challenges? I mean, you can talk about like maybe two or one. Or...
Got it. Cool. Uh, so I'll speak about one, right? So when I moved to product management, right? Naturally new guy. So typically the charter, which I mean, you're given a vague problem. So for example, the vague problem I was given is uh, at Uber, you have these very intelligent rules-driven models which identify you're a fraudster, you're not, right? But then you also have like an army of operations people who identify like these seem to be fraudsters and take action on them. Now, while the predictive side of things were very well understood, nobody really understood like the manual side of things. Like folks going ahead and just identifying, okay, these 10,000 users in Bombay seem fraudulent. I'll go ahead and take action on it. I'll stop them from using cash or something else.
Okay.
Right? So my fundamentally what I did there was, hey, this is a space which no one understands. I don't like why. Like let me understand what there is to it.
Okay.
So I went about trying to understanding how big a problem that space is. And it turned out that this side is 3x the side of risk action, predictive action. For example, if 100 users are being actioned through the risk platform predictively, 300 of them are actually being done manually, which is insane. So when I brought the scale out and I spoke about the challenges on this side to the leadership, they were surprised and like, oh, this is big. Can you like then come back with like, how do we solve this? How do we streamline this problem? How do we make sure that we define metrics for this area and how do we start solving for it, right? And then what I started doing was I started evangelizing this. So every meeting I went to, every mail I sent out, I would put this in the header saying, hey, read this note. You know, it kind of is a brief analysis of something interesting I found out, right? And then that got folks around across the board talking about, oh, this is a big deal, oh, this is a big deal, this needs focus, right? And then suddenly I'm like, okay, you're getting 2 more engineering staffing, solve this problem. So ability to like, there was nothing, nobody knew that a problem existed. Sometimes you identify that and then you evangelize it now that everyone sees that, yes, this is a problem to solve for, and you start solving for it. That's something which I genuinely enjoyed, and I think I definitely would hold as one of the better things I've done.
There's a question, Leela sir. Can you share an example of influencing stakeholders as they are answerable to you, and as they are not answerable to you? Like you can't influence when you don't have power over them in office setting. Yeah. So you were talking about, you know, how if someone is in a senior position, but you have to say something as a product manager. How do you? Can you share an example of influencing stakeholders? Who are, okay, now I've understood the question. Who's not answerable to you? So basically a senior manager or senior someone is, you have to kind of, influence them with your decision. So how do you do that? Have you ever done that? Have you been in such a situation as a product manager? Because since you did say that, in product management, there will be people, who have probably been 12 years experience in working with you. And then there are people, who are absolutely fresh. They're also working along with you. So how do you, have you ever faced such a challenge? And how did you influence that?
Yeah. So the every product manager goes back to one answer which they go, right? Like regardless of who is asking any question, the only question product managers ask is, okay, I will do it. It sounds like a great idea. I'm all on board with it. Engineering loves that idea. It's a great engineering problem to solve. But can we just meet again and talk about what is the business impact that this will materially move? And is this moving my metric and like the business metrics in a meaningful way? If it is, I'm happy to have it on board, right? And then that particular, say, individual goes and works out and comes back saying, hey, this is how much it will move. Then I say, okay, here is a list of like 6 items that I'm solving for, which probably move more than it. This is my understanding. I will definitely pick it up. Would it be okay if I pick up after these 6 because they add more value than your current, what you're suggesting? Are you okay with that? More often than not, they see reason in it and they are aligned with it. So when you bring down everything to a quantifiable number, right, and then you show it with regard, you use that metric, to stack rank others.
Huh.
People, it's a fairly objective way of influencing. That's the most widely used method at Uber.
Okay.
Then the other thing naturally is to bring in like your boss and then try and get them to align and so on. But usually it's between these two, I think most of the problem with influencing gets solved.
Okay. So, what is the so someone is saying the role of a product manager sounds similar to program manager. What is the difference?
Um, so program managers are, so more often than not, program managers do not have access to engineering resources.
Okay.
Also, the other thing with regards to program managers is so program managers don't necessarily have to work with engineering too much, right? Like they are in charge of a program, and they essentially what they try and do is like make sure that across the board teams are working towards the objectives of the program and nothing is being lost.
Okay.
Our product manager, on the other hand, is a business metric owner, and he solves for that business metric. And he has the relevant tech resources solve for it as well. If you remove, say, the engineering and the tech capabilities of a product manager, you would have a program manager. Yes.
Okay. There's a question. I'm a cloud consultant with Microsoft and would want to transition to product management. What should I do? What should I pursue in terms of knowledge gathering, courses to transition into it? Do I have to go through I'll have to go through internal rounds of interview, pretty much like any other interview. Oh, okay. So within the organization. So what all are the things that, that person can probably, the courses and the knowledge gathering? What's the source? What should they do?
Sure. I mean, I'm being repetitive here. Like you can do courses, but they're mostly a signal. In fact, if I were you and I was working in Microsoft, the first thing I would do is if there's a particular product team which interests you, I'd probably buzz them and actually talk to one of the guys in the team, right? And say, hey, I want to join your team. What do I need to do there?
Okay.
Right. And then some companies are more flexible than others. For example, when I wanted to transition to product, I actually just walked up to the product team, or he wasn't even in India, he was in the US. I got an email saying, hey, I'm interested. I want to spend some time with your team and understand like how it works. And he was kind enough to like give me that opportunity, saying, okay, can you get 2 months off from your manager and spend time with my team? If we like you, then we'll put you through like a loop.
Okay.
So that's an approach you could potentially take if you're in Microsoft. Like, or there are companies which are okay taking you in as a PM if you have not had prior PM experience, as long as you come from say big brands or you come from experience which is relevant to the problem they're solving for. You could, that's something you can do that as well. Because when I was transitioning to product, another opportunity I had was to move, I think, with one of the logistics companies, which was open to hiring me as a PM directly too. So those are two routes you can take.
Is it necessary for a UX designer to pursue MBA in order to get into product management? If yes, what's the path? MBA in marketing?
No, so there are product managers who have done MBA and moved into product management. UX folks who moved into product management. MBA helps for sure, right? Like one, it really helps you stand out in the crowd to some extent. But it's not necessary if you want to move into product management. If I were a UX designer and I was interested in product, you could probably have that conversation with your own product team, like the one product team you work with, and say, hey, I want to start I want to move to your team. What do I need to do to get there? And they might have a more relevant answer than what I would have.
So how an MBA helped you?
So how an MBA helped me was, what an MBA does is essentially it's a very generalist role, right? A program, right? So you know a lot about everything. So typically you do a fair amount of strategy courses, data analysis courses, and then you are able to connect the dots better versus you being just a techie or just a designer. So as a PM, one of the great skills you need to have is the ability to connect the dots.
Okay.
And MBA just gives you those general set of tools to kind of connect the dots more than anything else. And that allows you to be a good PM.
How does a CA with 1 year of taxation consulting background fit into this profile after an MBA?
I see one of the hottest spaces in even product management, at least in the Indian market, is fintech, right? Financial tech.
Okay.
In financial tech, they love guys from finance backgrounds who come in there. So I think that would be a great place for you to go to. But for you, maybe the easiest way to transition is through an MBA. Yeah, that is what I would say. But if you're a CA, why would you want to be a PM? I don't know. But anyway.
How to kickstart my career in product management track as a BTech fresher in India? Most jobs listed seem to require experience in product management.
I don't think so. I think a lot of APM programs in India, in some of the startups, definitely have are open to hiring engineers as PMs.
Okay.
I can't specifically point to which one. I think Bounce had one. There might be other companies which have it. Maybe if you could sift through them, you will find a company which will be of interest to you. That probably would be the best way to go about it.
Yeah, so there are many questions regarding this thing. How much of coding is necessary? Somebody has said, I do not love coding. However, I want to transition into a management role within the tech industry. How important are technical skills for product management roles or other such roles? So yeah, you can take the product management role.
Yeah, for a business PM, not so much. If you're a platform PM, I think you need to have some understanding of technology. Okay. Some companies typically want ex-software engineers as PM. For example, DirectI is somebody who has like a very specific focus on, hey, ideally I want like you to have development experience before you come to product management. So some companies will hold that against you. Amazon, for example, does not hold any coding, does not require you to be a software engineer in the past. Okay. So it depends on the organization you're talking about.
And I think, yeah, we missed this question. It's been repeated again. What is the difference between product manager and project manager?
Cool. So project managers more often than not, do not own anything. So if something goes wrong, nobody is going to question a project manager. Project manager will say, "Hey, boss, like, I don't know, engineering didn't do. And this was a schedule and they missed the schedule here." So project managers, what they try and do is just make sure that the well-oiled engine is moving, or actually just dropping the oil and making sure the engine is moving. They do not own anything. More often than not, they don't have KPIs around like any business metric or any business delivery. It usually almost always is product managers. Project managers, program managers in some settings do have program, like they own program. What happens is, for example, like going back to the question about program managers and product managers, right? The end goal responsibility always lies with the product manager. Okay. But occasionally the program managers they own the operational metrics of it. So it's more about like metric ownership and the resources they have access to. Program managers typically don't work with engineering at all, and so don't project managers.
Okay. So now with COVID-19, how exactly a product manager, what is the impact on this particular field? How is COVID impacting product management as a field? And also, can you tell us a little bit about how it has changed your work as well with Uber?
Got it. So it's all about COVID has been good for, I think, product management as a field, right? If you think about it,
that will be a good news for all the people.
Why is the stock market moving up? Right? The stock market is moving up because purely because of the tech companies, and that's because everybody is at home. There's nothing else to do. You just consume tech.
Right.
And where do product managers belong best? Tech. So it's just like a boom time. It's a great time to be a product manager. So that way it has been great for PMs, I think. What has happened specifically for me was actually I'm in a business which is about moving people, and preferably more seats, more people in one car is more money for Uber.
Correct.
Like, that goes against, it's the anti-social distancing, right?
Yeah.
Luckily, so that business is like it's struggling, right? Most markets we're like 30-40% of where we used to be, and that shows in the quarterly earning report as well. Luckily, we also have Eats, which is doing really well, Eats and delivery.
Yeah.
So most of my projects are pivoted to that, and I'm mostly solving for them. So what happened because of COVID, what necessarily happened to me was there was a fair bit of reprioritization in terms of what projects do I solve and which ones do I not. And then accordingly, and then it was just about putting your heads down and solving for that. Yeah.
Okay. There's a question about APM. APM programs. Is it available in many companies, but it is too difficult to get in as it focuses on recent university graduates, and since the seats are 12 to 15 only and applicants around the world, there is just no competition. Can you suggest how should we go about before applying to an APM program? What reflects good so that at least your resume shines out? I think you spoke about APM, so yeah, the question.
Yeah, APM programs, I mean, I don't know, right? I don't know what recruiters look for. Yeah. So in the absence of any great signal, I think they resort to just like known brands, known companies. Like you worked in a brand which they are aware of, or a company they are aware of, or they have folks from those companies already working with the company, or you come from a school which they're comfortable hiring from. They resort to proxies like that. Uh, the only way to signal that is, again, you've created a good online profile of yours from the standpoint of product management and you expressing interest towards it. But I can't think of a better signal which just allows you to move into product management. Yeah, that's it.
Which MBA specialization should a non-software or IT engineer take up to become a PM?
PM. So operations and marketing would be a good place to start.
Okay.
If you want to move within an MBA, like specialization, which one should I do? Both operations and marketing would be like reasonably helpful specializations. Finance may be a little cut off, but you could do that too, and essentially like you could look at roles within fintech. But even within fintech, I'm not sure how much of say capital markets is going to help you.
Okay. So, I've been working in the project management team in Samsung. I have been working closely with tech teams. How can I transition to product management?
Got it. I don't know. So companies have very clearly defined roles. So project manager, program manager, and product manager, and there are certain biases and there are certain criteria they impose on each of these on how people can transition from one to another. I don't know how it works in Samsung, but I think I already answered this before, right? Like you either get an MBA is a good reset button. You could use that to move into product management, right? Or you buy the humility pie, and then you start as a APM or like a PM in one of the other startup companies which are willing to give you that opportunity. The third one is within your company, you figure out like a rotation program or like and a PM who's going to willing to take you under his or her wing,
right,
and help you like eventually transition to those roles when an opening does come up. I think these are the three ways which are currently available.
So now that you've spoken about the skills needed or how to build your profile and what exactly is product management all about. So what are the few things that our MBA aspirants can keep in mind to prepare themselves from now? As in, they are preparing for CAT 2020 right now and 21. So what are the things that, I mean, it can be hard to know how to set yourself apart from the crowd, right? When trying to start a career in product management. So can you just tell us a little bit about like maybe a few 2 or 3 points, very, very important points that one should keep in mind, and they can, the MBA aspirants can keep in mind to prepare themselves from now. So what they can do now. And of course, you also because it's also COVID-19 and how this is going to change the market. It has already changed the job opportunities, the job market as well. So keeping that in mind, what are the things that IMB aspirants can keep to prepare themselves for now?
If I were you, I would focus on cracking the current exams now, right? And then think
Of
about
course, yeah.
later. But nonetheless, if you are looking at, hey, I want to transition to PM, and how do I go about it? This is a great time to get some certification courses if you want, because that'll, regardless of which school you land up or what you're interviewing for, that will certainly help you sending that signal. How else would you prepare for? There are companies who do take up interns as product interns. You could potentially take some of those interns or remote internship up, and you could work with them. I can't think of anything else that you would do right now to try and get into product management. What I would do though is, like, when you do get into school, in whatever college you get into, I would connect to the alum and seniors who are already in the product management space and try and understand what is it that they look for when they're hiring in their own companies. So at least when they come for recruiting, the one, they know you and have heard from you in the past, and that will help you to, again, write your resume in a way which makes sense for product management as well.
Well, I think, yeah, we have covered most of the questions. Yeah, so this is a question that has been repeated quite a few times. This is the last one we are taking. What is the major difference between working in operations and supply chain profile and product management profile? Yeah.
Got it. So operations and supply chain, typically your focus is on like process efficiency, process improvements, average handle time reduction, or turnaround time reduction, those aspects of it, right? So you have very operational specific metrics that you are responsible for and you're trying to solve for. You might be aided by tech to solve for that, but that's broadly it. Now, the product manager, who would be your partner who you're working with, would be responsible also for your operational metrics. But he or she would work closely with ensuring that tech solves for the right operational priorities and pain points. So that would be the key difference. You would mostly have control over processes and people, but I think that's broadly the span of control you have. You would not have access to the right tech resources. So the tech resources is something which a PM has access to. So it makes more sense that you would be working closely with a good operation manager would work closely with the product manager to make sure that his or her problems are solved quickly, and then their own operation metrics move fast. So that would be the key difference between the two.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Before we wrap up, I would like to thank all of your attendees and our speaker, Leela Krishna Annam, for taking our time and coming for this episode. Thank you very much. This is Kalyani Majumdar from IIM's Future You, wishing you a great weekend. Stay home and stay safe. Good day.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking with all of you. Thank you so much.